Tebowan. Vanakkam. I'm Vioni Dimel. This is Boston Lanka News, bringing you news, views, and entertainment from Boston and USA. Gowri Koneswaran, a Sri Lankan American, reflects on the Asian American Heritage Month. Americans in Washington, D.C. enjoys the hospitality at the Sri Lankan Embassy. Romance of Sri Lanka, a photo exhibition in Connecticut by Barbara Paul. The month of May is the Asian American Heritage Month. The U.S. Congress passed a joint congressional resolution in 1978 to commemorate Asian American Heritage Week during the first week of May, and then in 1992, May was permanently designated as Asian American Heritage Month by the Congress. To mark the significance of the Asian American Month, Boston Lanka decided to talk to an extraordinary Sri Lankan American woman in Washington, D.C. Her name is Gowri Koneswaran. Gowri is a poet, singer, activist, and a lawyer whose parents immigrated to the U.S. from Sri Lanka. She is also the program director at Bloom Bar's Community Art Space in Columbia Heights, a nonprofit arts organization that works to unite and inspire communities through the arts while nurturing artists committed to serving the community. Gowri, as a Sri Lankan American, are you satisfied with the progress the Asian Americans, especially South Asian Americans, have made in the American society?
So I think it's interesting to look at the history of South Asian American society culture in America over the past few decades. I think back to when my parents immigrated to the U.S. from Sri Lanka before I was born. This was about 1971, and what the situation was like for them. You know, they were certainly among a minority of South Asian Americans in the U.S. Certainly a minority of Sri Lankan Americans in the U.S. at that time. Now, 4 decades later, I think that South Asian Americans have become more of a more prominent part of the American fabric, a more prominent minority group represented in America. That said, I think we also have, some way to go to make more progress, to become more recognized in this country, not just as an immigrant population, but also for the fact that, many of us, as much as we are tied to our South Asian background, many of us, like myself, were born and raised in this country. And so to that extent, I think we do still have some progress to be made. I know that I still, even now in the year 2011, sometimes experience the situation, where I'll be talking to a non-South Asian American person, and the sorts of questions we get sometimes almost suggest that they don't always understand that we embrace our Americanness as much as we embrace our South Asianness.
You are a poet, a lawyer, a singer, writer, artist, and an activist. And most importantly, you are a Sri Lankan American woman. Could you please share some of your achievements, your passion, and your dreams?
Sure. I feel any talk of my achievements has to be prefaced with, again, referring back to my parents and, everything that I was sort of given as just a very solid, sturdy foundation to start with. And I feel so blessed, to have been born into the family I was born into. And I recognize that, my parents, have had so many struggles over their lives, to reach, the same level that they basically, kind of handed to their children when we were born. So some of my achievements, that I am proud of, go back to my education. I'm happy that I have a legal education, that I have a law degree. I'm proud of, many of my artistic achievements, as a poet, as a singer. For example, last summer, I was very privileged to be part of a performance at the Kennedy Center, in Washington, D.C., and it was a performance of about 5 or 6 different South Asian American artists. I was the only Sri Lankan American represented, and so that also made me very, happy to get to stand on the stage and represent, our people in this country. Some of my passions and my dreams. Certainly, as an artist, one of my dreams is to continue being an artist and to, hopefully find a way to make it a sustainable lifestyle over the long term. It's definitely, not an easy one at times. And some of my, other dreams are, I suppose, more personal in nature. But certainly I would like to. I enjoy making my family proud, and I would like to continue to do that. And I had a lovely experience yesterday. I was able for the first time to perform poetry in front of my parents. They came to Washington, D.C. to see me perform as part of a tribute to the Indian poet Rabindranath Tagore. So that was very special. So I feel that one of my dreams came true yesterday.
In your view, what are the challenges Sri Lankan Americans may have in trying to achieve the American dream?
Well, I think, when I hear the term American dream and I think of its relevance in the 21st century America, when I think of historically what we used to mean when we said American dream, I think oftentimes there was a singular focus on sort of economic, ability to survive and thrive in this country, especially coming as an immigrant from another country and, sort of starting from scratch here. In the 21st century, to me anyway, I feel the American dream also takes on some cultural and social significance as well. So I feel that South Asian Americans and Sri Lankan Americans, are making progress, all the time in terms of achieving the American dream economically. I think that some of our challenges may be more so in the realm of the cultural context. And what I mean by that is for Americans to have a better understanding of our background and also a better understanding of the fact that, for one thing, that Sri Lanka is a country. Again, that is something that I feel is not always really understood here. It's not unusual for me to say my family is from Sri Lanka and for people to say, what is that? Where is that? When I describe, geography, for them to ask, is it part of India? So I feel like that's part of the challenge. Also for Americans and for us to do a better job of highlighting the fact that those of us who come from, the South Asia, from Sri Lanka, that even amongst ourselves, we have very diverse backgrounds. And so I think that is also one of the challenges. And beyond that, I think just in general as a South Asian American, I think that and I don't think this is unique to our group, compared to some other racial and ethnic minority groups in the U.S. But I also think one of the challenges is navigating the line between Americans appreciating our culture versus sort of picking and choosing certain aspects of it and maybe, tweaking them to their own liking, which, in some contexts can be exploitative of South Asian culture. So I think, we are making progress, but we certainly have more room to go.
Do you have any poetry that you would like to share with our viewers that talks about the experiences of a Sri Lankan American woman living in the USA?
I do actually. I do have one poem that I would like to share. It's interesting. I think it does reflect, some of my thoughts about being a Sri Lankan American woman. Although the location of the poem is Colombo. I wrote it after, one of the trips that I had taken to Sri Lanka with my parents. And actually, this poem was published by an online arts magazine last year called Virgin. So it's also available online. I'll read it now. It's called The Distance from Here to There. She is afraid to cross the street alone here, so she grazes his elbow with her right hand. 29 years old, and her father is her security on this 8-minute walk from the hotel to his sister's house, from one side of the busiest street in this country to the other. She lets him think he blends in, allows him the privilege of believing his departure 30 years ago doesn't make this country any less his. that leaving his home to give his children one that wouldn't rank them by ethnic group is not the definition of choice. She has learned her place here. As a teenager, she thought she could camouflage herself in a salwar kameez, plait in her hair, pottu on her forehead, and made in India but sold in Sri Lanka slippers on her feet. But she wears her passport in the way she looks men in the eye and pays too much attention to trishaws and passengers almost falling out of buses. She asks to stop at the bookstore so she can practice her Tamil. Ennavile? He lets her get away with knowing how to ask, what price? While needing him to translate the answer into English.
That was wonderful. Thank you so much, Gowri. That was Gowri Koneswaran from Washington, D.C. More than 1,000 Americans visited the Sri Lankan Embassy in Washington, D.C. last week to taste the Sri Lankan cuisine and Ceylon tea and to try wearing a sari or a sarong. They also learned to write their names in Tamil and Sinhala. This was part of the cultural tourism program called Passport DC 2011 that Sri Lankan Embassy participated. Passport DC sponsors an annual around the world embassy tour that functions as an open house for Washington DC's foreign embassies. Now, in its fourth year, Passport DC invites participants to experience a global journey without leaving the city. The Romance of Sri Lanka, a photography exhibition by Barbara Paul, will be shown from June 2nd through June 29th at the Ridgefield Library in Ridgefield, Connecticut. Barbara, could you please share with us about the photo exhibition that you are going to have on Sri Lanka in Connecticut?
Yes, I would be glad to. The exhibition follows my usual rule of exhibitions. I like somebody to feel like they are really there. So it's a large exhibit. There will be about 90 photos, and it will cover all the experience that I had in Sri Lanka, and kind of it will cover the spiritual feeling that you have in Sri Lanka with several festivals and where there's dancing, and also temple festivals where women come bearing flowers. Just the most beautiful spiritual feeling throughout the island. It will also cover the ancient cities that you see and the Dambula caves. So there will be some of that in the exhibit. And then I do concentrate, because I'm a photographer and I just love it, other than the dancers and all, which are also very photogenic, was the tea pickers in the hill country in the middle of Sri Lanka, and how just lovely and photogenic they are, and the whole all the hills, the green hills of tea. And then, of course, the coast, where I concentrate. This is the southern coast, where I do concentrate on the wonderful stilt fishermen, which is so unique. That aspect of Sri Lanka is so unique that I do have a number of photos starting in the very, very early morning as the sun is rising, of the wonderful stilt fishermen. And so it covers really the full expanse, I think, of Sri Lanka of the time that we went.
There are so many countries in the world. So I'm curious, Barbara, why you pick Sri Lanka to visit and do this photo exhibition?
Sri Lanka was a place we hadn't visited. You know, people start with India, even Tibet, places that always come up first. But Sri Lanka was offbeat to us at the time, and yet it was sounded so beautiful and lush, and so and a little remote, and so that's one thing that attracted us there. Then I started reading more about it, and it was so diverse. The 2 weeks we spent there were so diverse that I think it just measured up far and above some of the other places that we visited.
How would you describe Sri Lanka to an American who does not have much knowledge about Sri Lanka?
I guess the word that comes to mind is just magical. For me, it was that way all the time. Magical, diverse, unique. It's just, and the people were warm and welcoming. The hotels were extravagantly gorgeous. The settings of the things to see were beautiful, from the hills to the jungles to the coastline. Stunning, stunning, stunning scenery all the way. Stunning temples. I was totally amazed. I never expected. I thought it was going to be real kind of backwoods type experience. It was a top-notch, first-class experience.
Thank you, Barbara. That was Barbara Paul from Connecticut. That concludes our news edition. We meet you again with another news edition of News, Views, and Entertainment from Boston and USA. Till then, goodbye.